You asked, we deliver. We're going to be talking about incident response. In this video, I give the floor to our in-house expert, Sébastien Cabo. And because forewarned is forearmed, Sébastien would also give you the 3 core things to keep in mind when preparing for an incident. So join Sébastien and I for a 13-minute crash course on incident response. This content is brought to you by the Center for Cybersecurity Belgium. If you like this video, please like and subscribe.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the CCB Connect and Share Cybertips webinar. My name is Clara Grillet, and I am an analyst at the Center for Cybersecurity Belgium. When we ran our surveys, over 70% of you wanted us to organize a Cybertips on incident response. Now, we know it is a very vast topic, and we only have about 30 minutes, so we decided to focus our webinar on incident handling. If there are specific topics within incident response that you would like to hear more about, for instance, threat hunting or real-life war battle stories, please let us know. As always, with the Cybertips, we will take questions at the end. The most upvoted ones will be answered live. To talk about today's topic, I am excited to welcome my esteemed colleague, Sébastien Cabo. Sébastien is an incident responder and a forensic analyst at the CCB's Cyber Emergency Response Team, which you may know under the name of CERT.be. Sébastien has been working countless incidents in Belgium, from small cases all the way to national incidents. Welcome, Sébastien.
Hello, Clara. Thank you for welcoming me. So I'm Sébastien Cabo. I work for the Cyber Emergency Response Team from the Cyber Center for Belgium, and I'm part of the Digital Forensic and Incident Response Team of the CERT.
Thanks, Sébastien, for coming and for carving out time in what I can imagine is a very busy schedule. I really hope that no big incident will start as we're talking together today. Talking about incidents, I saw that there were 45 cyber incidents reported to the CCB last month. And I'm sure that the audience is wondering, how and when does CERT get involved exactly?
That's actually a very good question. First of all, our role, we can have many different roles. So we can give expert advice. We can help managing a crisis. We can also do full forensic and incident response. It really depends on the help that's requested. And the way you can get us involved is to reach us through the CCB website and use the report an incident button. We unfortunately cannot onboard or respond for every incident for everybody. The priority is given to the NIS2 entities that have been defined in the European law and that's been transposed in the Belgian law. But we will anyway try to at least acknowledge your issue and try to take back contact with you and provide advice if we can. Additionally, maybe we do have some conditions that are available on the CCB website. If you just want to know what we can do, it's explained in details on the website. And just a small disclaimer, we are kind of firemen, so we won't stay to rebuild your environment or perform the action for you, but at least we can put out the fire and give you the appropriate recommendations.
And that's already quite a lot. So thanks a lot for doing this. As a reminder for everyone, if you want to know more about how to report cyber incidents, you can check out our YouTube channel. Sébastien, I know that you mentioned that you do more than just incident response, but from what I understood, incident response remains your core business at CERT. So in your experience, what are the most common types of incidents that you have had to respond to?
One type of incident that comes back very often, it's the ransomware, unfortunately. There are different types of ransomware, but we could say like there are 3 different types. So like a single endpoint that would be infected through an email attachment or a malware. Then you have more the one that's targeting the virtual infrastructure, where a threat actor would encrypt the data stores where the virtual machines are hosted. And then you have the more a broad deployment that's going to target both servers and endpoints through like a deployment of GPO, BitLocker encryptions and stuff like that. Then another type of incident that we have a lot, it's the business email compromise. That can be that often happen to actually have a legit email business and be able to do spear phishing and trying to do like a CEO fraud. You're less you're less careful if you receive a valid email from a valid company asking you to pay a bill or something like that. So that's something we see often. Then there is the more broad type of incident, which is edge device compromise. So any device that's exposed to internet. I'm thinking about a VPN, a web server, an RDP server. So those are really the type of incident that's going to lead to a big intrusion and a full compromise. Is something we see very often. In parallel with the business email compromise, what you have seen more and more in the last month, it's the Azure tenant takeover. We had a case where a threat actor actually used it to host its own malware infrastructure and target other entities. So that was quite an interesting case. What we see also often, it's an info stealer case where people have a malware like the infamous Lima stealer that was really popular last year, where basically it's a malware that's going to steal all your passwords and even sometimes session tokens, and be able to reuse those session tokens to actually bypass login and MFA. And last but not least, in the really, I would say, common incidents is the crypto miner. It's less prevalent nowadays, but it used to be very, very popular a couple of years back.
Great, thanks, Sébastien. I saw that there were some questions on the chat about whether or not the slides will be shared. They will be. Actually, can already download them, and I would encourage you to download them already because we added some technical annex to help you respond to ransomware, business email compromise, and edge device compromise with specific things in specific measures you want to be looking into. So that could be really helpful for you if you are actually working incidents in your profession. What I did understand as well from this is that these are categories, but essentially every single incident is different. So it's important to look at each incident with a fresh eye. So Sébastien, we're going to do a thought exercise. Let's imagine that you receive an alert that something suspicious is happening. Where do you go from there?
So you really have to ask you the right questions. On which system it was detected? Was it like on an edge device? Was it on a laptop? Was it on a domain controller? And depending on this, you're going to need to already adapt your response. The second question that you should ask yourselves is how did it get there? Was it through a download of a user? Was it through a lateral movement from a threat actor? Was it an exploit that was uploaded via a vulnerability or something? So this is really important. And then what happened on the system? Was it blocked? How was it detected? What could have happened before? What stage of an intrusion could this be? Is it the early stages, or are we already at the end of a cycle? So this is really important question that you have to ask yourself. To give you a few examples, we could take, for example, a successful login on an edge device, but the MFA didn't go through. So you could say, okay, nothing really happened because they could not get in since it was blocked by MFA. But you would still have to first reset the password of the user, and then maybe also a token or something. But you have also to ask you the question, how did it get there? Was it through a phishing, or could have been an info stealer? So those are the right questions. The right question you have to ask yourselves. Then another example, this is actually from a true story. We had a case where a ticket reported by the antivirus was closed by an analyst because they successfully removed a malware on a domain controller. It was Mimikatz. For those who know, this is a really bad alert to have on your domain controller. So the analyst just closed the ticket. Obviously, here that was not the right answer, and you should understand how it got there. Obviously, if you deploy a malware on a domain controller, you're already domain admin, so there are a lot of activities and investigation you need to do, how they got there, and then you have to contain and eradicate. Another example that's actually very recent, it's the crash of a web service. By itself, it looks not that bad, but you have to understand where it happened and why it happened. In the last Ivanti cases, it was actually a way to patch the web service process to be able to capture, for example, credentials in memory. So this is really important to understand why it happened and where it happened.
I actually really like the examples that you're giving because I find it makes it a lot clearer to understand why you actually want to ask yourself these kinds of questions. When we were having a chat, you kept repeating how incident response doesn't stop until you fully learned your lessons. Can you tell us a little bit more about why lessons learned matter so much?
It's a good way to actually fix a weakness in your environment and understand why it happened. For example, was it picked up by an antivirus, an endpoint, an EDR, an endpoint detection and response tool? Was it detected early? Did you have the appropriate monitoring? Did you have the appropriate logging? Because you can have logging, but not capturing the right events. Was the system patched? Was the system known? Was the software that was impacted known and up to date? Is it still supported to come back for the eventee, for example? The eventee, some of the eventee were out of support, so on the 31st of December 2024, but people were still using it because maybe they didn't have the appropriate lifecycle management for their device. So it should always lead to a discussion to see what went well, because you have to acknowledge what went well and also what went wrong, and to be able to fix those weaknesses. And something that's really, really, really important, it's to not play the blaming game because it's never helpful. We have been in incident response meetings where people are yelling at each other and blaming each other, and it puts a very bad atmosphere, and then people get disgusted and don't want to work anymore. Yeah, so no blaming game. Additionally, to help you, there are some resources online. Thinking about the CCB website and the CyFun web at work website. You have the Cyber Fundamental Guide that's been developed by the CCP. Those are basically a set of measures that NIS2 entities have to implement on the environment. But this is also it's open for everyone. So even if your company is not a NIS2 entity, you should have a look at those, because it's always a good place to start, and it can give you also ideas on what to implement to prevent further intrusions or incidents.
Yeah, indeed, whatever the sector you are in, there is always a cyber fundamental for you. So I do want to pivot on what you just mentioned. In real life scenarios, everything starts off from an alert, right? You keep talking about detection. My understanding, though, is that if detection is something that we really want to invest in, we need to have budget for this. But in reality, I hear very often that budgets can be tight. So in order to not compromise our own security, I'm just wondering, are there detection tools that I can use for free or maybe at a low cost?
Yeah, definitely. There is a slight disclaimer though. If you use those tools for a commercial purpose, that the license might not work. And obviously you won't have any support besides readily available documentation online. But for example, for an intrusion detection system, you could use a Security Onion. For log analysis and log safekeeping, you could use a Greylog on Elasticsearch cluster. For firewalling, you have OPN Sense. For an EDR, so an endpoint detection and response tool, you have Wazoo. That's becoming very popular nowadays. It also does CIS compliance. So basically, those are a set of hardening measures, and they can compare your device or endpoints against those compliance. You have also Active Directory auditing tools like Ping Castle. This is a French tool. It has a lot of documentation. We really highly encourage you to run it on your domain. You don't need to be a domain admin to run it. It's going to give you a report to see where you stand on your domain. It can give you a lot of areas of improvement, identify weaknesses. For example, we run it lately on a case where we could use certificate to issue, to do a takeover of the domain, stuff like that. It's going to remind you, for example, oh, you're still using those legacy protocols that can be easily abused, that kind of things. And if you run it like every 3 months, 6 months, that can be a very good, healthy habit. And then if you dabble a little bit in forensics, personally, for example, at CERT, we use Eric Zimmerman's tools a lot. It's really super helpful, and it's free of charge, except maybe if you do it for commercially, but that's another story.
Thanks. That's actually really helpful. I think a lot of people are going to be interested in looking at those open source tools a little bit more. Another question I had, Sébastien, you've been working on, I don't even want to count how many incidents you've been involved in, but one of the things that you pointed out is that you learn from them, whether they are the lessons learned that you make within your own organization when you're working on a case. But I'm just asking to take a step back and just understand, are there measures or priorities that really do make a difference?
Yeah, so the goal is actually to make a threat actor life difficult. So the number one measure, no question asked, is MFA. It's not foolproof, but it can stop already a lot of attacks. So we really highly encourage you to implement multi-factor authentication. Have backups on how many incidents we intervene, and then people didn't have the right backups, or they were always online and connected to the domain. So obviously the threat actor removed them or deleted them and corrupted them. It happens all the time. So we always highly encourage people to have to implement the 3-2-1-1 rule. So 3 different copies on 2 different media, for example, on disk and then on tape, 1 copy offline and 1 copy offsite. If you have a fire in your data center, you lose everything. If you have copy on offsite in the cloud, for example, then you're safe. And nowadays, there is the zero buzzword, where it just means that test your backups, ensure that they work. Because sometimes people think they have backups, but they haven't been tested in 2 years. And then when something happens, they want to restore the system. It doesn't work because, it was never properly tested. Another really efficient measure, it's monitoring and detection. So detection have, like, for example, an antivirus, or even better, an EDR, and onboard those logs, but also watch them. Sometimes we have cases where basically they had antivirus alerts for weeks, but they didn't look at them. And so they were all surprised they had a ransomware attack or something like that. But would have had a look to those alerts, they would have been able to respond way sooner and when it was not too late. So having the next gen tools, but nobody looking at them, it's totally useless. Patching quickly. There is a lot of activities from threat actor, being commercial or APT even, around vulnerabilities, because that's an easy way to get in. There is a lot of patch diffing. So it means simply that a threat actor is going to try to install the patch, and is going to check all the files that have changed with that patch, and they're going to try to reverse what was patched and what changed, and find the vulnerability. And once they have the vulnerability, they can create an exploit and then use it to deploy, to reach their objective, being ransomware or whatever. Sometimes it can be as fast as 24 hours. So you have a patch, and then 24 hours later, the first wave of attack starts. So nowadays, you cannot wait 3 months to patch. You really have to be fast and not wait too long to react. And then and last maybe measure is the least privilege principle. Your employees or your colleagues don't have to be local admin, of their machine. Or we have seen guys actually using a domain admin as their principal user to do their day-to-day activities. Why do you need to browse internet with your domain admin? It doesn't make sense. So just enough privilege to do what you need to do, not more. That's what we would recommend it. Because if it's more complicated for a threat actor to get those credentials, then it's going to take more time. You're going to get more chances that he's going to make a mistake. You're going to catch it. So yeah, just enough privilege.
Okay, so we have, I understand, 5 key priorities to save it in case of an incident, but these are all technical measures. And technical measures, we both know that it does take time to implement them. And often, let's face it, we are rushing to put out fires. So I guess my next question to you is there anything that we can do to prepare for an incident that is not very time consuming or super technical? Please give us hope.
Yeah, well, again, being prepared is a really key measure. We always recommend people to implement an out-of-band communication channel. So if you have a full domain takeover, how can you be sure that they are not able to monitor your emails, for example? If you communicate about response, the threat actor can know, and then it can also burn everything behind and destroy everything. I mean, those are possibilities. So we always recommend to implement this. You need also to define clear role and responsibilities. Who has the right to decide something? Who can take the decision to isolate your network? So those kind of people. Who can contact your insurance? Who can hire a company to help you respond to an incident? So you need to be prepared for those. And then in case of ransomware, you lose everything. So you lose, for example, you lose your documentation and your procedure. So have them printed out and ready to be used in case it's needed. That I think would be like 3 measures that are important.
Thanks, Sébastien. You actually are giving at least me hope because these seem to be rather reasonable measures. If that's all right, I have one extra question for you, and I know that there's a lot of people who have many questions to ask. But you did mention, sorry, multi-factor authentication, and that's part of your 5 measures to save your life. I've been involved in incidents where MFA was not fully implemented. And so what happened is that threat actors use partial implementation to get into the systems. And when I asked why was MFA not fully implemented, people would tell me that's because multi-factor authentication can be impractical, especially for shared accounts, or which also sometimes end up being domain admin accounts. So my question is, how do you recommend doing MFA properly for admin accounts?
There are actually multiple scenarios. The first scenario would be you have a shared account for a portal online, for example, for a supplier or something. Then you can use a shared password with a team pass solution, so a vault, password vault solution, being Bitwarden, whatever. Then you can have rules and role-based access control on those. So that would be a way to share efficiently a password. But then if you really want to implement it, for example, for admin activities on your domain, there are really, I would say, 3 main scenarios or 3 main things. You have first the hybrid environment. So it means you are connected to Azure, for example. And then there is a way to use Entra ID and MFA FIDO with Azure. So that's built in. Unfortunately, if you're fully on premise and you don't have an Azure Entra ID connected to your AD, there are no, Microsoft never bothered to implement TOTP solution straight out of the box. It's a shame, but that's a reality. So you need to find a commercial application software solution with a YubiKey, for example. That's something that can be implemented. And the next level, this is something we see implemented in banks, for example. It's a privileged access management solutions with just-in-time approval, rules-based access, so like CyberArk. So if, for example, you need to do something in a machine, you're going to connect with MFA on that platform, and then you're going to request a user that's going to be approved by someone. And then that user is valid for a limited amount of time, and then going to be disabled and the password rotated automatically. So even if, for example, the hash would be captured by the threat actor, it would be only valid for a very limited set of time.
Okay, thank you for clarifying this. I can see that it is definitely possible to do MFA properly on shared accounts. I know we have many questions in the chat, and just to give you a little bit of time to read over them, Sébastien, I'm just going to go ahead and have a couple of announcements. As you know, the CCB's quarterly threat reports, or QCTRs, as it also is known, they are back. And so the next edition will take place on the 10th of July. You can register online. Our moderator will share the link in the chat. For those of you who also want to be keeping on listening to our Cybertips webinar, we are taking a break over the summer, but we will be back on the 9th of September. And our next topic will be how to prepare against DDoS attacks. Another second announcement, the CCB is hiring. So if you want to join a fantastic team and do truly engaging work, or if you know somebody who does, please check out our vacancies. This QR code, I promise, is not malicious. Now, Sébastien, it is time for you to answer some questions. So what is your first pick?
Okay, I haven't time to go through all of them, but I see one, for example, do you also have a communication plan in case of cyber attack? This is a question from, I think, Stéphanie Paulet. So You can always, in case of incident, we can always put you in contact with our communication department. They can help you, give you tips and tricks to communicate efficiently in case of a cyber incident. This is something we do often for big incidents when we manage them. We always put them into contact to be able to answer any questions you might have. I see some questions regarding NIS, I think CyFun. Those are good questions, to be honest. So the CyFun Cyber Fundamental, I think, is becoming the standard for Belgium, at least for NIS entities. But to be honest, if you do have questions, we can compile them and maybe update the FAQ. I know there's a FAQ on the website regarding all of those questions, but you can always send an email to us via the website, and we can have a look and try to answer those. I think the next talk is going to be about DDoS, because I see a lot of questions regarding DDoS attacks. So this is coming, I think, in September, Clara, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, on the 9th of September, we will have an entire session dedicated to protecting against DDoS attacks. So hold on to these questions, because you will want to ask them again. And of course, we will be taking care of looking at them and trying to answer those also during the next session. I think we might have time for one or two other questions.
I could see, for example, a question: what's the most dangerous threat? Phishing, virus, or something else? I would say it's carelessness or not appropriate funding. Or often what we see is that management doesn't really care about cybersecurity. I know that you guys do, but it's really important to take it seriously. You have much more to lose than just not investing in cybersecurity. And yeah, maybe a tip I haven't really given, but we often encourage people to push for getting rid of a legacy environment or systems when an incident happens. Anyway, you have to isolate, everything is down. Take the chance to get rid of that 2008 R2 domain controllers and upgrade it to a new OS version. Those sometimes are really the chance you can take to make things move, because then you just have that much weight that you can push things. So that's something I would really highly recommend as well.
I think I have a question for you, Sébastien. So
yeah,
we had a couple of slides ago, we were talking about preparing. And so you mentioned that you can use, that it's best to prepare by looking at who are the people that perform certain actions. And I know that there are some templates that could be used and that should be adapted to your organization. Where do you recommend that we find such templates?
Yeah, so there are a lot of documentation. There's a lot of documentation online. Thinking about playbooks. Actually, if you just look for ER playbook or incident response playbook on GitHub, for example, you might find a lot of resources already. Obviously, those needs to be adapted to your environment, because they're not going to work straight out of the box. But that's already a good place to start. And it's very difficult to make something adapted to your own environment. So this is something that needs to be reviewed and adapted and tested. So yeah, this is not something we publish, but there are a lot of recommendations on GitHub. You can find those easily.
All right, thanks, Sébastien. This is now really the end of today's webinar. So I want to say a big thank you to our expert, Sébastien Cabo, for his insightful tips. And a big thank you to you all for watching and for asking questions. I really appreciate that. We will see you next time on the 10th of July for the QCTR, or on the 9th of September for the next edition of the Cybertips webinar on DDoS attacks. Goodbye, everybody.